Welcome to the December Poets Corner. Thank you, Joyce. This is December Poets Corner, so welcome to our house. Come in and join us for some poetry. Hi, welcome. I'm Mimi Pantelides. I'm going to be reading selections of poetry from a new book I'm having published. Should be coming out in April or May of 2021. I'm really excited about it. It's a nice thing. The name of the book is called Forest for the Trees. And you know, as I do, that the old expression is you can't see the forest for the trees. Well, I'm kind of afraid now that we've come to the opposite viewpoint, that we can see the forests all right, but none of us get much chance to see the trees. So most of these poems came about because I was walking in the forest and had a chance to kind of think about things. And I have to say a bunch of thank yous, of course, to my family that's been enthusiastic about me trying something different than what I used to do. And there's two ladies in particular that I can blame for doing this. And that's Annelle St. Charles and Barbara Russell. Without these ladies, who are both writers and poets, I don't think I would have ever thought that the stuff that I write down in my journals would be worthy of sharing with anybody else. So thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this journey that's been happening since I realized that this was something I would like to do. So I've had a chance to read at the Women's Theater Project several times, which was really my first time doing that, and I found out I really liked it. So here we go. Hang on to your seats. These are selections of poems from the coming book, Forest for the Trees. And the first one is called Bird Song. What is it like to fly, to not be afraid to fall? What about singing so loud, so clear, a shattering whistle 100 times your size? What is it like to wait in full confidence for the ringing reply you know must come? The second one is called Really. Often people say that trees are standing still, but really, they are all busily growing up. It is we distracted humans who rush around on the ground and forget to grow up. Especially in this time of the pandemic when we can't go outside, I am really craving this feeling of wildness, of appreciating the things that grow without man doing anything to them or for them. They're just there besides us. And I really, it's almost like a hunger that I want. So I'm going to share another one with you that is another tree poem. It's called Tree. Did you ever hug a tree? Not me. Except when I was 3. And then, because we were playing hide and seek, and I hugged an oak so it would hide me. Well, I do remember at 13 leaning my tear-hot face on my hands on the same rough bark of the tree, the self-same oak who hid me at 3. Oh, and there was a time, how old was I? Took a book to that tree, found a place when the day was long and no one needed me. Sitting down at the root, found a place between its knees. Oh, ancient tree, that time it hugged me. Bark warm, comforting between my shoulder blades, yet cutting hard against my back, spine to spine. Its roots deep, searching the vitals of our earth. Its solid, living bark, skin soft in the core, with fibers running unsullied from root to crown, delivering water, its life's blood, to to tender leaves open to the sky and sun. Not a thing that's extra, nor unneedful. Every structure informed by gravity, its form dictated by natural forces to grow in fullness to its ever-increasing height. Tons of heavy structural wood, seemingly immovable and therefore dead like stone. But there is the error, human indeed to assume, for instead, that tree must be a sentient being. It grows, it heals its wounds, and changes with the seasons. And proof of all proof, it nurtured me, was father, mother, confidant, and friend, and with its stern bulk, a pastor teaching by example for the life of me. So I guess I am wrong, for though I thought not, I did hug a tree. As you can imagine, with the title of the book being The Forest for the Trees, there's a lot of forest poetry in here, just because that's what I really like. So bear with me. This next one is called Forest Music. I went to the forest to think, not to hear me with my forever rethunk thoughts, not what I read or heard or saw or shared. I just longed to hear life uninterrupted. The words I like rise from a rhythm and a music in my head between my ears, but also rising from my breath, but beneath my very feet, and the best of them are still cool, dusted with earth. I feel thoughts expand before they take shape as words. I don't think they belong to this century, but instead to a space of time before the First Great War, when my father was a boy, before 20th century Fox. I cannot see when I look into the light. I only see what is reflected when it is past, when it is filtered by substance or memory. So here in the shade of trees, in the shelter of the forest, I listen for that age-older melody, the song of nature with its words formed of natural living canons, given to me before they wilt and wither in contemporary musings or the dry heat of habit. That's forest music. The wildflowers are going wild. After a short night's sleep, I took my headache to the park and reveled in the woods. A downy woodpecker greeted me. I watched a hiker wearing earbuds staring at the ground. He almost walked over a pair of Canada geese resting on the path. Geez Louise, go walk on the sidewalks. But all this time, the wildflowers were going wild. Spring beauties, Dutchman's breeches, trout lilies, trillium, blue delphinium. My mother's voice in my head named each blooming example. Of course, I was small when she held forth. The thrill was to come unexpectedly upon them. The shooting stars, Solomon seal, hepatica, grape hyacinth, jack in the pulpit, May apples, dogtooth violets, violets purple and white, blue-eyed grass. Later in life, living near different forests, I learned new names like skunk cabbage, fiddlehead ferns, lady slipper, and ranunculus. Why is the naming of living things such a pleasure? Wildflowers tell a familiar story, and each year, when I call each fleeting flower by name, I summon not only the flowering time, but the invisible winter metamorphosis, the tiny seed, cracked by the frost, heaved up out of its burial place, pillowed in the mud, to burst out of its carapace, to grow into fingering roots, clutching dirt and pebbles for sustenance and support, strong enough to brace the upright stem, pushing earnestly toward the light, strong and ruthless, demolishing every obstacle it can't avoid. How does it end in such a delicate fairy wing of a bloom, such a fragile, short-lived thing? The answer lies not in the delicacy or the fragility of its structure. Its endless strength is the pulse of life, strong because it does only one thing. It grows only in one direction, and therefore the flower itself needs no strength. It is only sheltering the life force, which uncurls like a great wave with unbelievable momentum, only to crash and reseed, ready to grow again. I think that is why the naming of wildflowers fills me with joy and comfort. Delicate flowers which rise on that life force need not be ugly or harmful, though they are short-lived. They will come again next year. Somehow, if I can name them, say their names out loud, I can borrow some of their energy and wrap myself in their once-a-year magic. And it just occurred to me while I was reading this that may be why you really can't pick many wildflowers. As soon as you do, they wilt. So you have to leave them where they are. And walking in the same forest, I have a little ditty called Forest Story. Seek spirit by the shores of the lake. Look for wildness in the shadows there. I take my wild spirit to rejoice in the lake, where the cattails whisper to the tree frogs. Beneath the rippled surface, deep currents run. Spears of light reflect on the surfaces of leaves. But they don't stop there. The rays don't rest there. They penetrate, driving processes we know of, but don't see with our everyday eyes. Oh, it is difficult work today to be wild, even to be here with wild things. Their tremulous voices rise, but are so easily drowned by the sound of jets and train whistles, the distant growl of traffic, relentless footfalls of human endeavor that all but obliterate the forest's song. This forest, though protected by people, is badly abused by them. It is only allowed within acceptable boundaries. Breezes still play here, skipping over lake ripples, wafting over maple leaves, caressing the feathers of the smallest wren, grandfather heron, and the baby owl. Watery reflections anchor the struggling trees. Wavelets lap the miniature islands of grass, whose seeds mistakenly sprouted on a broken log lodged in the muddy shore. Even as our civilized cacophony ebbs and flows, the breeze here strengthens, waking the taller trees to weigh in as the lake waves splash. Fishes arc into the air for a buggy morsel, birds vie for territory, and the human footfalls fade in the distance. This is what I came here for, a moment of wildness. This fabric I belong to without ambition or judgment or greed. I hear an ancient song that fades as people ignore it. I come here with my wild spirit to hear the echo of wildness I belong to, we belong to, and eschew at our peril. So you can always find a lesson in the woods. I think we do need wild forests. My next poem is called Another's Purpose. A perfect day, thank you, Goldilocks, for the nursery rhyme. Not too cold, not too hot, not too still, not too fraught. Perfect sunbeams playing on the leaves, taking the dear coat color of the forest floor, and dabbing it gold, yellow, and neon green. And so those sunbeams serve. Silent leaves suddenly find their voice, falling, twirling, whispering down, settling so lightly on the ground, their last song before winter. And so the leaves serve. The turkey in their majesty, their dance of sex, their minuet in the compost, shelters seeds and nuts. And so they too serve. Counterpoint to the stately birds, flicking tails, chucking, scampering, squirrels busy, burying their treasures in the path, unknowingly they too serve. They'll never find their bounty come spring. They serve another's purpose, little do they know. Perhaps we each serve in that way, little do we know. And one last forest poem called Chlorophyll at Work. Funny where words can lead. They lead, and my mind follows. I read them aloud and hear new thoughts. Consider light. When the light is right, you can see the air. Sometimes it truly is blue, and because it hit me, I could not walk far today. New words, new thoughts kept stopping me in my tracks. When the light is right, when I see it right, I can see the light penetrating the ash leaves. Chlorophyll at work. I don't really see it, I suppose. I sort of know it, assume it from third grade science class. Is it true? I don't really know, but I believe it, though I don't feel it, not being an ash tree. My leaves are small and tough. They are not translucent and light-edged as those gracing yonder sapling. So where have these words taken me? To the edge of supposition, from light to air to scientific exposition, leading me to a rare and delicate proposition, what it might feel like to be light-edged and translucent, transforming light to life. I love these poems. I hope you enjoy them too. I get such a pleasure out of reading them over and over again. I suppose if I stop getting pleasure, I should just throw the whole thing out. But come be with me. This next one is called Fire. And this is a narrative that comes, it's semi-autobiographical. It comes from a real experience that's taken on its own life as the words began. So, Fire. Did you ever blow on a match to put out a flame? It works, and all that remains of the fire is a glowing ember. When you hold the flint under a dribble of water from the kitchen gooseneck faucet, all you hear is a short hiss, and it is gone, cold enough to discard in the trash, cold enough that it may not have burned at all. Did you ever burn leaves in the backyard? We would rake our white oak's blunt-fingered leaves into long berms on the winding gravel drive and set them alight. When coals had formed like the glowing flints of 1,000 matches, we would throw acorns in to hear them explode like the report of a rifle. But blow on that flame, and it could suddenly leap out of control. Hot tongues of flame and little live coals from exploding acorns easily escape to the leaf cover not yet raked. One fall day, a sudden west wind swooped in and turned a long, carefully shaped shock of leaves into a roaring blaze which caught not just the nearby leaves, but also the family car, and in no time caused the gas can sitting there to explode. Nothing like little pops of bursting acorns, but more like our whole world had suddenly turned to gas, heat, and flame. The fire truck summoned was on the way, but not arrived before the flaming car parts had ignited the cedar shakes on the house roof. That is when I remembered the ironic look of burned-out houses. You've seen them before. The only thing still standing, their chimneys. Fortunately, the pumper truck roared up the drive by then and pumped gallons of water over the roof, the car, and our neat snake of blackened leaves. Soon the fire was out, and the next day, after hours of hissing, smoking, cracking, and sighing, the fire was out, cold enough to touch, to walk through, but never cold enough to erase what was left of our confidence in fire. This is called Glance at Bonnie's Jazz Score, or A Tale of Two Scores. And just to let you know, I was raised in a household where classical music was constantly in the air. My mother was a classical pianist, and if she wasn't playing, the radio was. The only music I had ever seen in my life were the scores for Chopin and Liszt and Rachmaninoff, which is like this crowd of little black notes all over the page. I mean, it's just full. And later, after I left home and I was teaching in Vermont, I stayed with a lady who was a jazz pianist. And it was very nice. She had a tiny little house, and her living room was totally filled by this enormous grand piano. You had to literally walk around the sides of it to get from one place to the other. So I did, of course, and looking at the piano, and I thought, oh, I'll try my hand. And I looked at the score sitting on the piano, and all it had was one line of melody. There was nothing else there. There were a few words that said calypso rhythm or suggest augmented seventh. That was kind of it. And I was shocked, especially when she sat down later to practice for her coming gig, and there was a whole lot more there than just one line of music. So anyway, here we go. Glance at Bonnie's Jazz Score, A Tale of Two Scores. 5 lines, 4 spaces. A picture of time and tone filled with music, beauty in sculpted harmony. Each moment punctuated like an essay, the tempo decided, described in Italian so that each measure, each phrase, each breath is clear, the meaning clear with no question or argument, performed the same identical way for centuries. The composer's intent, reaching through the years so we know him as though he lived next door, and we just shared tea and crumpets. So satisfying I could listen all day. But then, along comes this new guy. He says, tea is just weak coffee. Crumpets are muffins and butter. I need a new song, something fresher than 100 years old. Like Jack Benny smirked in Delmonico's when the waiter proudly announced, "Sir, we serve the same cheesecake we made for Diamond Jim Brady in the year 1890. Benny then quipped, in his special Jack way, "Can't you bring me something fresher today?" So, with that same old melody behind him, the new guy freely played what was in his bones, and his irreverence didn't fit in 5 lines and 4 spaces. It flew all over the page and off the page, and caught the ear of a sax player who looked over his shoulder at the melody, and it struck him in the heart, and he played another tune that merged and tickled and delighted a drummer who made those 2 songs together rock. When a singer heard it, her ears swooned, and she sang her song along too. All that jazz, it sounded just great, got feet to tapping, folks to swaying and smiling. The next day, that irreverent man played his melody again. and the melody came out the same, only different, as each player added her ears, his heart, their dissatisfaction. The page still only carried that one line of melody. The jazz players did the rest. All because that irreverence had to smile or cry and just couldn't fit on the page. It needed more than 5 lines, 4 spaces. So I guess I have to add a little caveat that musician could also be a girl. And the music that comes down through the centuries, even though it's written precisely, is certainly interpreted by the musicians who play it. So I'll give you that. My husband and I have been fortunate enough over the years to travel around the world. And year before last, we were fortunate enough to be invited to Ecuador, and we got to go to the Galapagos Islands as well. This next poem speaks about my experience of returning from that wonderful, beautiful country. It's called Return from Quito. Today we descended from the sky, returned from a foreign land, where the inhabitants sing their language high, high, with their ears in the heavens, brushing shoulders with the clouds, drinking rain in the afternoons when those clouds sweep down, swallowing the streets. Back from the land that time forgot, to time as commodity, lord and tyrant, to home familiar and yet foreign, here where I am stranger than in those strange lands, where, though foreign, I was seen as friend. Here I am more akin to the city trees, standing in silent witness, to the foreign people passing each other by, with ears and eyes stopped by their preoccupations, having missed the chance to be here in their own land, missed the moment to see me friend. What are we afraid of? Are we simply out of practice? Or are we held socially enthralled in a fairy tale of our own making? I hope we don't have to sleep 100 years to escape the spell. This next was on a trip that we took to northern Greece, where we stayed a week or so in Thessaloniki. This particular one, is for my son-in-law, Paul. It's called Ode to Thessaloniki. Mythical walk by the mythical sea, the mythical mountains flanking the lee. Who should be walking but mythical me? The sea is dark, bluer, the sky far too light, the mountains much farther, and the ships close, too bright. Joggers racing down and up the wharf pass Alexander astride Bucephalus, but none of them look. The general strikes me with awe, and more so his horse, but then they are only stone, not live with me. Still I can imagine on my mythical walk by the mythical sea, the mythical mountains flanking the lee. Who should be walking but mythical me? And this is also a poem that comes from direct experience. It was just a short visit that maybe lasted an hour or two, but again, it kind of woke me up. And it's called A Surprising Hunger. Years after we last met, face to face, smile to smile, voice to voice, I realized a hunger. How surprising to taste the sweetness from her eyes, a look welling from the heart, pure and cool, quenching, washing away the dust of doubts left from ink on the pages of our correspondence. The music of friendship almost losing its way, echoing like voices down a long hallway, studded with doors leading to strangers' lives, concrete stairwells spiraling down to dark corridors closed, cold, dank. Dry whispers suddenly brightened, nourished, shining with light, warmed and replenished, fed from the waters of that spring. It washes soul deep, that song of connection, one friend to another. It's clear and bright, better than love, for this carries no burden, no weight of duty, no debt of promise impossible to pay. In one short afternoon, a hunger surprised me, never realizing its existence, and in one full look, one grateful hug, one shared laugh, one trembling, almost tear, the hunger is banished, sated, retired to its dark hidden corner. And as my front door closed behind my friend, the click said, well, that was a surprise, a hunger I hadn't realized. And next is Half Dark. This is also a poem that sprouted from our new house in the city. Something that just occurred to me one day walking in the hall, and it's called Half Dark. Down the stairs in the half dark, 6 o'clock in the morning, my summer bag crouches in the corner of the hallway by the leaded glass door. It may not be what it seems. My summer bag crouches in the corner like the Cheshire cat. If I go back up the stairs and come back down again, I wonder if it will grin. Grin that wide mouth, head wide smile. For though it is just a crocheted string bag I thoughtlessly fill with miscellany, and throw it here and throw it there, over my shoulder into the car, on the floor of the hall, some artisan reached deep inside to plan the pattern, choose the colors so pleasing to me, choose the colors so pleasing to me, and then proceeded stitch by stitch to bring this bag to life, designed with a purpose in mind. Down the stairs, half dark in the morning, 6 o'clock, my summer bag crouches in the corner by the couch. Oh, forgot something. Back I go up the stairs, and on the descent, did it grin? Will it pounce? What persistent, grinning, Cheshire cat life did the artisan stitch inside? This next little ditty I offer to you because every single word of it is true, believe it or not. It's called A New Year's Wish, 2020. I woke up to the phrase, I thought, quite clear, honey, you have opinion in your ear. To which I replied with helpless cheer, what? Where? Who? Opinion in my ear? Now the most hilarious of all this year is that I was quite asleep, but surely did hear, honey, you have opinion in your ear. For a wake-up murmured wish to steer my groggy brain cells on January 1 to peer at the infant 2020 morning yet to appear, for at 5 a.m. in the dark, I'm in low gear. This new year has begun with a pagliaccio leer. In my humblest opinion of the diminutive opinion, a better repository than one's ear is definitely, positively, unquestionably beer. Still, what a relentlessly funny phrase, my dear, as a first utterance of the fledgling year. Turn over, whisper liltingly, honey, you have opinion in your ear. To which I reply between gasps for air, I don't have opinion in my ear, and don't put pinions in your ear, my dear. Put them in your beer. Now, of course, I couldn't stop there. So there's a New Year's Wish Part 2, pinioned. My opinion of the desert pinion needs revising, it is clear, for the pinion is neither diminutive in size nor shaped to fit a loved one's ear. It must have been a different term, for I know now, awake and clear, that meaning must have been pignoli, which is small, tasty, slick to feel, and common enough in our household. More common than the tree we've seen, growing tenaciously in harsh environs, brave enough to be sure to merit emulation, but not as toothsome, cunning sweet as the seed from which the conifer grows. And it certainly would never fit in anyone's ear. I mentioned once before that we're aging. I'm looking at 70 this year, and all of a sudden it's a big subject in my life. So this next is called When I Was Young. When I was young, shop boys and baggers wore shirts and ties and obsequious attitudes. Now, well, what's to tell? I am proud and not that my age from a distance can be mistaken, for I don't leave my house without seeing myself in my 20x mirror to apply mascara. I do not leave my house without eyebrows. I refuse to share my features fading away, graying into oblivion, for I am not fading. I'm full of life and energy, though it may not appeal to the young. Where are you, young'uns? Why let the old wizened men who've surrendered to the weaseling tongues of power run the show? Raise your sights away from your phones and screens. We need you. Recognize that those screens only show you facades. They only play a shadow show of some circus barker's imagination. Those manufactured images are no substitute for life. They may be entertaining and catch your interest for a time, but ultimately you will only know how only you are in a sea of otherwise occupied human beings. Easy for me to say, you say, for I am not immune. Who is that in the mirror that I worship before the door to the outside world after my mascara is applied? Is that not just as alluring an illusion as the Facebook friend we court? This two-dimensioned backward face I hide myself behind. The natives were right, of course, that in the tin-type image the photographer brought forth lay the heart, the seed of someone's soul, bare and unprotected from the storm. And once it's out, the sad news is no one can put its life back, nor change the brittle edge left on the skin of paper, sliced from the heart of a tree. So as time has passed, and shop boys and girls fail to see who is me, I can forgive what I too have grasped, holding illusion too close to see, loving a mirage that fades in the sun, thinking the image is me. And still on to more aging. This is called The Blows of Time. And it's not as sad as you might think. There is grit and courage to be had, for sure. The blows of time. My fingers trace this scarred and barren field, which once was full and ripe to bursting, where of a time I tasted running fingers through verdant soil, rejoicing as I kneeled open-hearted with innocent eyes. Life has dealt its blows, and though we rise again, each time it knocks us senseless, every fall has left its mark. Here, the raised white line left from the surgeon's knife. There, a pit depressed, its bounds the mark of an old blow not quite ever healed. Thinning, paperish skin, slowly losing its ability to color with emotion, is yet revealing the structural bone, the grit which resists the blows of time. This poem is called Limitless. Limitless happened in front of my house here on Music Row. Limitless. We each contain an inner child. How do we know her? She is the center of her universe. She hears the truth hidden behind acceptable words. She believes she's the only one who can hear it, the only one to embrace it, and she believes she will probably regret it. Wouldn't it be nice to tell her, it's okay, you're not alone, we hear it too, we also hold it in our hearts, and just at that moment we must stop and agree, we may get hurt because of it. And deep inside, we are each the center of our own universe, though as grown-ups we agree it may not literally be true. Today my child peeked out peculiarly because I walked barefoot on the rainy city sidewalk, back and forth from my front door to my daughter's car, in a raincoat, PJs, and no shoes. What a renegade. How daring. How suddenly connected through the whole of my life's history to the time when at 4 years old I ran barefoot on icy, cold summer grass, so cold I could hardly stand it, alone since my parents were still asleep in bed. And I dared unlock the door to run outside, barefoot, alone in my own universe. Just as today, when I tiptoed on the delicious wet concrete, met no one. All those years ago, no one knew I was such a daring success, such a wild, limitless thing. And today, I felt the same, daring, limitless, delighted, just from feeling my feet running barefoot on the street. And for my last poem of the day, again, it's an experience that I had several years ago. I got to meet Judy Woodruff, and I was visiting my daughter in Atlanta, and it was Sunday, so there was farmer's market at Grant Park, just down the block. So of course it's called Farmer's Market Day. Sunday morning in the sun, first cool Sunday of the fall, glorious, blessed, cool air to breathe, pools of liquid sunlight between shadow shoals, comforting, warm. Farmer's Market Day, closer and closer to the stands and tents, families converge, more young than old, flights of laughter and smiles, hugs and knowing glances. Small dogs, mutts and kids, and the hulking borzoi, poor thing, bred to run, courser for kings, whose native gait rivals the wind. Here you tread, your pace unnatural, slogging with your expensive human on short, thick leather leash, dull-eyed, withdrawn from the crush, feeling nothing, greeting no one. 1 step, 2 steps, you 4-footed creature, walking in 2/4 time, like your fashion forward master. In the midst of the market scene, our eyes meet, connect, go deep. I know you. You know me. We never knew the other's name or face, but see what lives behind our eyes. In one moment, a fraction of time, with less than the speed of light, we each recognize a kindred spirit. It's a moment of beauty, unmarred by conventions of speech, a perfect moment seen and felt, then gone, never to return, immediately submerged in the bright flags of conversations, laughter and greetings, the promenade of see and be seen. The walk in the park, amidst the neighborhood crowd, out on a Sunday morning stroll, seems as though the air were filled with kaleidoscope colors, voices colliding like brilliant butterflies, fluttering and dancing in the pools of warm sunlight. Standing in line to buy fresh, hot donuts, the moment rises for me again. How incredible to meet another, to embrace without words or touch, another mind so completely. Its impact felt before words could diminish the intimate beauty of that moment's thrill, as satisfying as the smell of hot donuts and sugar, as eloquent as a poem written just for us. The moment joined to the pleasure of the day, like a poem floating in the sunlit air, best because it found a suitable host, an ear to hear, a heart to beat in time, a mind to embrace and expand the thread of a thought. For poetry is something like donuts. You can't enjoy the sweetness till you place it on your tongue, and once you do, you want it again. Thank you for joining me tonight. I so enjoyed reading this poetry and hope you enjoyed hearing it. So good night. Till the next time. The book is The book is The Forest for the Trees, coming out in April 2021, published by YBR Publishers. Thank you. It's been delightful. Good night.